So coming back to the question, my question is that what kind of the journalists who were there, Pakistani, what kind of things they were writing about? I'm not talking about.
There was no
the
other
government.
Pakistani journalist.
But there was someone from Ministry of Environment who was coordinating with Mr. Awan.
Okay, I didn't really interact with him, so
Okay.
maybe I think because maybe he was writing for the Urdu press. I'm not sure. I didn't really interact with him.
Okay,
So, but he seemed to be taking a lot of pictures. So,
okay, the delegates who were there, to what extent they effectively communicated Pakistan's concern related to climate change?
I think, like I said, this confusion has to be sorted out, and we had a meeting yesterday in which this thing came up as well, this post-Cancun briefing that Bleed had, and there seems to be a confusion between the goals of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the goals of the Ministry of Environment. And maybe possibly they have the same goals. I'm not sure. So that they have to sort of... like I said, when we prepare, for example, for next year for Durban, I think there needs to be a high-level meeting and somebody needs to take charge, because the minister usually arrives late. He usually arrives in the second week of the talks. So for the first week, effectively, you don't really have a head of delegation. So who is your head of delegation? Who decides what the others are supposed to do? Which meetings are people supposed to sit on? I mean, for example, for Shafqat Kaka Khail Sahab, it's very clear. He's a member of the board of the CDM, so he will go to the CDM meetings. Obviously, the IG Forests is going to go to the RED meetings, right? And then Farouk is adaptation board and finance, so that's his speciality, so he will cover that. But what about the others, where do they fit in and who manages them, what do they perform?
Were they moving around like headless chickens?
Some of them, yeah, I think so. Yeah, because there's so many meetings going on and so many side events. And like I said, like Farouk and Mira and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs people seem very focused. They seem to know exactly what they're doing.
So what do you suggest? What should we do? What should Pakistan do at COP17?
Before COP17, they need to sit down when they form the delegation, when the names are finalized in the list. I mean, I'm not sure what process produces this list. I'm not aware. I mean, is it the Ministry of Environment, and is it I know there are certain members of the Foreign Office who are always asked to attend these talks because that's the way the government has, I don't know which level of government has decided this, but they need to sit together and they need to sort out who's doing what and who's going to be covering what and what areas, whose speciality, and then also reporting back, there should be some accountability. Did you go to these meetings? What did you get out of how did you participate in these meetings? So, like I said, we have some very, very capable people. Then we have other people who are capable, but who maybe haven't been, they're not really familiar with the process as yet. So it will take them maybe one more COP to really get into the procedures.
You recently wrote an article on Pakistan's a potential climate change policy, and there is a lot of criticism on that. An expert told me that it is a cut and paste policy, and it's not even worth commenting. Have you seen the draft?
I haven't seen the draft, but I believe it was based on the recommendations of the Climate Change Task Force. A lot of it is based on the recommendations, and which were more general. And I think the criticism is that it needs to be more specific with timelines, with proper resource allocation, how much money will be spent and where is this money going to come from. And so instead of just having a wish list, right now it's like a general wish list. And I think someone said yesterday that even the United States government cannot fulfill this list for us, So we need to be, very, very specific. And also, it's very late in the day. I mean, it's never late than never. What's the word? Better late than never. But in Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, these are not very rich countries. They already have a national action plan in place, to deal with climate change. And we were just sort of waking, like I said, because of the floods. And all this is happening because the floods hit us so badly this past year. And there are fears that it might happen again. So we really need to speed things up. And I believe that even now, this policy which is being prepared, it still has to be submitted to the cabinet. The cabinet has to approve of it. And then it'll be turned into some sort of an action plan. So we're looking at probably the middle of the year. Maybe even the end of the year before things start actually moving on it.
So are you saying that we won't be able to carry a policy and an action plan at COP17?
No, I hope it'll be ready. I hope it should be in place, because then we're going to miss out on the money then, because the other countries are very clear about, what the priorities. They are very clear. Like Bangladesh has, I think, spent $100 million of their own money on adaptation, and Maldives is going carbon neutral, and these are all sort of goodwill gestures that they are showing to the world. And
so what Pakistan is doing? What is in your knowledge that could
well,
that
I
you
mean,
could share
in
with us?
Copenhagen, there was all this talk about the fact that we've discovered one of the world's largest coal reserves in Thar, and we're not exploiting them, and therefore, we are sort of being sensitive to climate change, and we can use that as sort of like a chip in our favor.
So are you saying
but
that so far?
but then you hear talk about that we have to take the coal out of the Thar desert, and so I don't know. Like I said, it's very confusing. You have to come up with a clear.
Are you saying that so far Pakistan has not benefited from the programs of climate change, from the fund that has been set up?
The fund there's no money in the fund as yet. 30 billion has been promised. I mean, there's a smaller, because there's a confusion, there's a smaller adaptation fund, which Farooq is like the head of. And that is set up by the UNFCCC. And Pakistan is actually one of the few countries that will actually get money. This is for GLOFs, glacial lake outburst floods, to prepare communities, early warning systems, and to enhance their capacity to deal with these floods, because they're saying that a lot of dangerous lakes have been formed by melting glaciers, and they could burst at any time. So that's a different. That's a very small fund. I don't know the exact amount.
But I'm talking about.
But this is a huge fund now. The $30 billion fund. That's not in places yet.
No, my question is that the agenda of climate change is very old.
Yeah.
It started years and years ago, and then Kyoto Protocol came into existence. My question is that since you have been writing on this issue, is there a single program under which Pakistan has benefited from?
There are 10.
Programs?
If you talk to Shafqat Saab, he'll tell you that there are 10 projects, 10 CDM projects that have been approved in Pakistan, and I think out of them about 7 or 8 are up and running. And there's one in Lahore, the Lahore compost project, which is currently doing really well, but it should have been upscaled by now. It's proven that it's a success, and there should be one in every city. That's what he was complaining about. But to get money from CDM is such a long, torturous process that many companies and even though they might want to go for it, they say, okay, you'll have to hire an international consultant, you'll have to make all these, and then the ministry doesn't make it easier either. They make it very difficult for you to get a CDM project, So therefore, we're not really taking advantage. Even RED, I think the IG Forest is Mahmood Nasir. Now he's very active, and he suddenly said, come on, we should take advantage of RED and get some money. But we are behind. We should have been ready for RED. You have to be ready to get RED money. And only now we're waking up and trying to get ready. So we're already missing out on.
Rina, who makes our policies, environmental policies?
I don't know. That's a good question. That's what I guess the Ministry of Environment, should be making our policies.
Should be.
But
yes. Who is actually making it?
I think it's just like I said. It's not an important ministry. It really isn't. And
Ministry of Environment is not an important ministry.
Well, I think he's waking up to the fact that it could be such like, for example, take India. Up until a few years ago, it wasn't an important ministry in India either. Then suddenly they realize that, this is the way the world is going, that they're all going, it's called a low carbon pathway. And China is already way ahead. It's become the market leader in solar energy and, renewable energy. And America is much more, it's not because of the Republican. Anyway, that's a different issue. But they're also waking up to the fact that, we're going to be, fossil fuel era is coming to an end slowly but surely.
So what you are saying is that we still remain a security state?
No, we're not waking up.
And we are just promoting on religion. Religion is the only
religion,
progress.
And I think we're just not waking up and realizing which way the world is going, and we're just far behind. And India's woken up, and they've appointed this Jai Ram Ramesh, who's now become like a celebrity in India because of all his statements that Indians shouldn't copy the West, they should not drive SUVs. Why are we, and he's taken such a proactive stance. And even in the Cancun talks, he was sitting in the lobby of the hotel. Most evenings, accessible to. I could have gone up and talked to him. You could have gone up and talked. Open to anyone and everyone, talking about India's stance, talking about developing countries, talking about what China and India need to do, what the US needs to do. So it's all about being proactive. I don't think I saw our minister in the lobby.
Pakistan is always very obsessed with India. If India would increase its defense budget, Pakistan will also do so. Why Pakistan is not obsessed in things like that?
I don't know. I just don't. Also, I guess India is a bigger player in these talks because it is one of the, it is an emerging economy. It has very high growth rate, very high greenhouse gas emissions. We are very low on the list of greenhouse gas emitters, but then even that can be turned into our advantage. If you talk to Shafkat Saab, he says that, I mean, most of our energy, we can get from our, we are getting from hydropower, from Mangla Tarbela. So we actually are already sort of on a low carbon pathway, not because of our own, I mean, design, but because of the way things are. So it shouldn't be so difficult. Yeah, load shedding and the energy crisis. And in fact, he says, why not go for these small hydropower projects? And then we have an international expert called Tariq Banouri, who's now stationed in New York, who is a global expert on renewable energy, on solar energy. And the poor man comes to Pakistan every few months, tries to talk, tries to make, the government listen to him that, come on, the future is renewable.
He's recipient of Sitare Imtiaz, by the way.
Well, good for him, but I don't think anyone's following his recipes because, I mean, menus or recipes or whatever you call them.
Okay, Raina, my last question. Is there any future Pakistan? Is there any future for Pakistan in sustainable development?
Of course there is. It's, I mean, right now,
renewable. Or the country is just sinking and sinking.
No, most of our electricity is still off the grid. We still have to develop. We still have to get, gas, energy, electricity to so many people living in this country. So, if we start investing now in solar and wind and hydropower projects, I mean, we could meet our energy needs very easily. And the price is coming down. So for people who say, oh no, it's too expensive right now, that's not true. Just go to the internet and just look up what Tariq Banouri is saying, and you'll see that we have a formula, to get out of this mess. But it's all about leadership, which comes down to good governance.
Leadership at political level or what level?
At a government level, at a government. I mean, yes, but, I mean, at a low scale.
But to the best of my knowledge, there is, they are just clerks at the government level, not leaders.
Well, I mean, now...
That's what Parvez Amir said. That what they demonstrated at Cancun was clerkship.
Not all of them. He wasn't, I mean, like I said, the core group knew what they were doing and they were doing a good job. In fact, Pakistan got them to broaden the definition in the shared text and the vision text, so that now when the funding does come, other countries like the Philippines, like even Pakistan, they can be eligible for this, because initially it was like the small island states, the least developed countries like Bangladesh and the African states that were trying to get all the money, as we are the most vulnerable countries. But now, as you can see now, I mean, if you read the newspapers today, the floods in Australia, the snow, and I mean, it's happening all over. The freak weather events are occurring all over the world now. So it's not just, these in countries that are most vulnerable. Even Pakistan's become most vulnerable. So then what Pakistan did is they managed to broaden the language, because of their lobbying behind the scenes. So they did manage to do some good, so you cannot say that we were an insignificant sort of presence at Cancun. We did manage in our own. It was a small delegation, but I think because of these, like I said, 4 or 5 very effective people, we got a few things done.
Mahmood Nasir.
Well, Mahmood Nasir was just learning about bread. It hasn't really started in Pakistan. Shafkat Kaka Khail, I would say Farooq Iqbal Khan, I would say Meera Ghani, because she's been, following. Well, she and Farooq are working together, and I think this time Dr. Asad wasn't there, but he's also part of what is called Rio Plus 20. Which is going to be the big conference after Rio.
What an organization, very briefly, what an organization like LEAD and CDKN have contributed?
I think they've started building the capacity of Pakistan's delegation, and they're trying to open it up so that it's not just Ministry of Foreign Affairs controlled sort of body, but other people can now come on board, like different provinces, like the Forests Department, like the Planning Division. So I think they're doing a very good job in sort of opening things up.
Thank you very much.